They're freaking cowards. They're gutless. We're not here. I'm talking about gun violence.
You know, there's never been
I'm talking about gun violence.
in a school that allows teachers to carry.
Carry guns?
Would
More
you
guns lead to more death.
Would you co-sponsor
More
that?
guns lead to more death. Look at the data. You're not looking at any data.
Data. Interesting. You know, when you don't have a point and you don't know what you're talking about, just yell. But it's interesting to note, because I would like to see where Congressman Jamal Bowman gets his actual data from. Places like, I don't know, the FBI, maybe the CDC, and a handful of other governmental sites. The opposite is actually true to what he was saying. In fact, gun crime from 20 years ago is down despite Americans buying 100 million more weapons. However, it is important to note that in the last half decade, the gun homicide rate has actually begun to increase, but it's even more important to note where it increased. In order of the most violent cities in America: Memphis, Detroit, Cleveland, Baton Rouge, Milwaukee. Oh, just to be fair, the five below that are Richmond, North Charleston, Kansas City, Little Rock, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and the capital of my home state, Hartford, Connecticut. These are the top 10 most gun-violent cities in all of America, all under universal Democrat control. So are guns the problem, or policies that encourage bad behavior the problem? Joining me now to break it all down, host of the fantastic podcast Bearing Arms and Second Amendment advocate Cam Edwards, and president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, John Lott Jr. All right, Cam, go to you first on this. Obviously, you know, spoons make people fat and cars make people drive drunk, right?
Yeah, sure. Listen, I mean, if more guns equaled more crime, then we would see our crime rates in this country go up year after year, month after month, day after day, right? Because more guns are constantly being sold. What crime rates actually look like over the course of U.S. history are waves. As you noted, in the late 1960s through the early 1990s, crime was on the increase. And then in the early 1990s, crime started declining and continued until 2020, when the pandemic, you know, and the civil unrest and the riots and the court closures led to an increase in violent crime that has sort of plateaued as of right now. But Carl, I ran across an interesting story a couple days ago. Toledo, Ohio. You know, Ohio is a constitutional carry state, became constitutional carry last year. Toledo, Ohio has not had a gun-involved murder since February 3rd. Ooh. I mean, they've gone almost 2 months without a gun-related homicide in a constitutional carry state. That's supposed to be impossible, according to gun control activists. But it's real, and it tells me anyway, once again, that it's not the guns that are the issue, it's people.
Well, John, to Cam's point, I mean, Plano, Texas, the #1 gun-owning capital of America, and probably, actually, yes, the world, has almost a non-existent murder rate. But then you have places like New York, Baltimore, Detroit, places like this, that it's virtually impossible to get your gun permit in. And to Cam's point, there's tons of murder. Chicago.
Yeah, I don't like to make purely cross-sectional comparisons, but look, there's a simple reason why murders and violent crime have increased the last few years. You've had defunding the police. You've had district attorneys in many parts of the country refusing to prosecute violent criminals. You've had liberal judges in many urban areas releasing anything from half to even 2/3 of the inmates from jails. You've had bail reform. This isn't rocket science. If you're making it less risky for criminals to go and commit crime, they're going to commit more crime. Yeah. But one of the ways you can make it risky for criminals to commit crime is to let victims be able to go and defend themselves. You look at these mass public shootings like we just had in Nashville. Where do they go? They go to places where there are gun-free zones, that people aren't allowed to go and protect themselves. You look at all the school shootings in the United States where everybody's been wounded or killed. Every single one has been in schools that don't allow teachers and staff to carry, as Congressman Massey was saying in that clip that you showed there. You know, we've looked at all the school shootings in the United States from 2000 on, from an accidental discharge where nobody's hurt all the way up to a mass public shooting. And it's very clear that these murderers pick targets where they know victims can't defend themselves. You know, it's the Nashville shooter. It's come out that that person had looked at 2 other targets and had declined to go after them because of security there. But that's nothing new. On our website, crimeresearch.org, we list time after time in these diaries and manifestos where these murderers explicitly explain why they picked the targets that they did. And the media refuses to cover the fact that they say they want to go after places where they know victims can't defend themselves.
Yeah. But Cam, let's go to that. A long time ago, there was a young senator, it rhymed with Joe Biden, who said, hey, let's make gun-free zones. And now, subsequently, you have gun-free zones where over 95% of these mass shootings happen. So when Congressman Bowman says, no, I don't want to arm teachers, why the heck not?
Well, that's a great question. I wish the Congress would answer it because, listen, Carl, we protect our money in our banks, right? We have armed guards in some cases at convenience stores. So why on earth? We certainly have armed guards for Congress and for our politicians. So why would we not want to protect our kids the same way?
Yeah.
Why would we not want to see if there are teachers or even members of the community who will volunteer, who can get vetted, who can get trained, and who can serve as that first line of defense for our children? If, God forbid, somebody walks through that door with murder on their mind, I want them to be met with an armed response. I want that response to be trained. I want that response to be, again, individuals who have volunteered to take on that responsibility, but I want that response there.
Exactly. Cam, John, we got to leave it right there. But you know what? When a bad guy shows up with a gun, they call a guy with a gun anyway to stop him. So they might as well have him there ahead of time. Cam Edwards, John Lott Jr., we thank you very much. Also, big shout out to Glenn and Barbara. You guys sent me something very nice within the 2A realm. So I want to say appreciate your presence there and your support for the Second Amendment. We love you guys.